Yo, guys, welcome back for the third episode of Real Time Economics, and I'm happy to have you back. So, let's just get started. So, the markets were generally up in the last few days. Bank shares got a lift from higher interest rates, and sentiment on Wall Street was more bullish as traders bet that the trade war between China and the USA would not be as bad as everyone thought it would be. The S&P has been up more than 8.5% this year, and it is expected to continue its rise for the rest of the year, with the bearish investor sentiment on emerging markets and the rising oil prices due to escalating global tensions. It came to news that China hit back on the Trump's tariffs by taxing $60 billion worth of goods. The only problem is that the amount of trade the countries do is not shown in all these, media and the news. China does around $500 billion worth of exports to the USA, while the USA does about $150 billion worth of exports to China. These $60 billion worth of tariffs is said to affect only 0.7% of China's GDP growth. So this is nothing much more than just media blowing basic news out of proportion, with a lack of cold hard facts. On the other hand, what economists are expecting is a deal to come through in the coming few months and nothing much to happen to the massive trade deficit that the USA is facing. Next, you know how Trump has always been saying that the Chinese have been cheating and have been persistently depreciating their yuan with regards to the dollar to prop up their exports. Just yesterday, the Chinese second in command to the government mentioned that the persistent depreciation will do much more harm than good to the country, and they do not look to further depreciate the economy to stimulate their exports, as this will lead to low profits and benefits to China will continue to reduce to a much more magnified extent if they do engage in further currency manipulation. The truth to the whole picture is that they currently have a debt to GDP ratio at about 300%, and persistently depreciating their currency will just make them have to pay much more than what they would pay if they had a stable currency. Earlier this week, there were headlines in the newspaper that Pakistan raised duties to avert crisis. We can consistently see the shift of globalization and free trade back to the protectionism and tax trade ways as countries continuously update their trade stance with regards to their poorly performing economies and currencies. Apparently, Pakistan will be taxing more than 500 goods, all in the aim of protecting their local industries. But the problem is, this is just what all other economies are doing, like India and China and Turkey. So there's nothing much we can do about it, but just watch how this whole trade protectionism stance will affect our economies in the long run. In better news, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un proclaimed that talks with the USA on denuclearization were proceeding in a much more positive tone. Additionally, it is speculated that the Korean peninsula will head towards the path of complete denuclearization in the coming 10 to 15 years. As a country like North Korea, nuclear weapons and being a nuclearized state provides them with the opportunity to be on a level playing field during negotiations with other countries, just like how we saw with the USA. Completely denuclearizing would just mean signing their own death sentence, as their sovereignty will be at stake, and this will leave them vulnerable to being a puppet in negotiations or even evasion if we take the worst consequence. Hence, I don't feel that there would be a chance of completely removing them off their nuclear arsenal. However, limiting it is a good start, and this is good news to the world, and more talks on peace should happen. On a more surprising note, the pound was down 1.5% against the dollar at the end of the trading day after Prime Minister May's statement on the Brexit talks ended up shocking the world media rather than keeping in compliance with what was portrayed over the course of the whole week. Right before the speech, The entire world media were in consensus that the talks were progressing and that a deal would definitely be reached in the coming months. Some even gave an 8-week timeline, and this added some strength to the pound over the last week. However, in her most recent statement, she said that the EU must treat UK with more respect in Brexit negotiations. She also said that talks had reached an impasse and could only be unblocked with serious engagement from the EU side. On the other hand, European Council President Donald Tusk said a compromise was possible, but the UK proposals had to be reworked. To this, May said that it was unacceptable for the EU leaders to reject her plan with no alternative at this late stage of negotiations. I feel that what is happening is not only very unfortunate, but is also leaving many multinational companies in the dark and keeping the lives and jobs of many at stake. A deal has to be in the works soon. However, this round of political table tennis is definitely set to continue into at least the start of next year, and the volatility in the pound is set to stay. Some are even expecting the pound to hit an all-time low in the process. But more importantly, more stringent and comprehensive talks have to be in play to combat the continuous volatility that is better for not only the UK but for the whole world. Anyways, that's it for today, and I'll see you next week for another round of Real Time Economics. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.